Hey guys, Chad and Bailey in here with the Reptile Rangers. Now we're at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center again today, and we are going to talk about getting your baby boas to feed for the first time, all right? Now, before we get into that, right here in this corner, matter of fact, right below Bailey's little emblem on his shirt right there is going to be the YouTube subscriber mark. Make sure you hit that, and we appreciate you guys doing that for those that have done that. And for those that are on their cell phone, just widen it up to the full screen. It'll be right there below his zoo sign. All right, now, let's get straight into this. So most of you know that we've been breeding boas and berms, and we breed cobras. We've been doing it for years and years. And as you've seen part one, part two of these babies. This is one of the few super hypos that's left that I have. These guys right here are absolutely beautiful, beautiful babies. I love my baby boas. But however, how do you get your baby boas or Burmese in certain species? How do you get them to eat for the very first time? Well, we're going to talk about that here today. We're going to talk about several methods and things that you can do to get your baby boa to eat for the very first time. And that also would be even if it's been established and had a few meals with whoever the breeder was, but it's being a little bit reluctant in your care. How do you get them to feed for the very first time? So let's go right into this. Now, I'm going to have Bailey explain what we do for most all of our babies, especially the ones that eat right out of the gate. Bailey is going to talk about what we do, and then I'm going to go back into some other things and methods that you can do when it comes to your baby boas.
Okay, so whenever we separate them, we will put them in appropriate sized deli cups, and we'll fill it with just a little bit of water, and then we'll leave it in there for 10 or so days, and then once they have their first shed, we will dump the water out. We will put a live fuzzy rat in the cage, and general rule of thumb, it'll piss them off enough that they'll take it out of spite. All
right, so that is a fact. All right, so with Burmese, with a lot of our babies, what we'll end up doing is, like he said, we just take, like you've seen here in this picture as he was talking, we'll take them and put them in appropriate sized deli cups, gives them enough room to move, and so on and so forth. We'll put them in a little bit of water. That's just so they stay hydrated and everything for the first 10 days, 14 days until they come out of their shed cycle. Now, ultimately speaking, the easiest way to get your baby boas, your baby berms to eat right out of the gate for the very first meals, for the ones that's not going to be reluctant feeders, is just to essentially irritate them with a rat, and it pisses them off, and they just hit it out of spite. All right, now, but what happens if that doesn't work? Well, sometimes it can take baby boas several weeks before they have an interest in feeding. Understand, the yolk sac, or what's left of the nutritional content that they had attached to them that they have to absorb, is still playing an effect in their appetite. So they may actually still be full, not hungry, not ready to eat yet, okay? However, let's talk about some other things. Let's say you've been for 6 weeks and they still have yet to eat from the whole irritating the crap out of them. What are some other tricks and things that you can do? Well, there is certain things like assist feeding, okay? That is one. You can do something called assist feeding. It's not force feeding. Force feeding should only be done as an absolute life-saving last resort method because you can actually turn the animal away from food. Assist feeding is close to force feeding, okay? Understand this. You're still having to hold them, get your little snake, and then you kind of put it in the mouth. Instead of forcing it down, you just put it in the mouth and leave them alone, and hopefully they take it that way. You could try doing what's called braining the rat or quartering the rat. A lot of times the braining the rat, which is of course opening up the head, will cause a certain scent that's a little bit stronger than what the outside of the body would have, that would have and show or cause the snake to show interest in feeding. Now, there's some other things you can do. Some of these babies, they didn't want to eat right out of the gate, but they would eat in the dark, okay? So especially like with baby ball pythons, they're another notorious just handful to try and get started feeding, but they're a nocturnal species, so a lot of the times they prefer eating in the complete dark, complete black, where there's nothing, they can't see nothing and nothing can see them, or at least they think, okay? That's another trick to the trade that you can do, is just covering the little container, covering your deli cup, covering your enclosure, whatever the case may be, so we can't see anything going on around it. But a lot of the times, just especially, we're talking about the first couple of feedings, getting them established to feeding, is going to be essentially just irritating them to the point of pissing them off, to taking it more out of spite. These guys have a huge prey drive anyways. They have a huge prey drive, so a huge instinct for wanting to hit things that move. Ultimately, they just have to feel comfortable and not feel so stressed out or like there's too much action going on or too much that they are not comfortable enough to want to take food in. Now, there's some other tricks and things that you can do. Yes, you can put them in bigger enclosures. You can put them in smaller enclosures. You can try dead feeders versus live feeders. Some of them don't have an interest in taking something that's moving and wiggling. So they would rather just go right up and see it not moving and just start consuming it without actually having to kill it. So there are several things that you can do and try before it comes to the overdramatic method of the force feeding route. Yes, as an absolute last resort, sometimes force feeding can kick them out and be like, oh yeah, that's what that was there for. We have had that happen, and so have other breeders, where they just forced it on in there, and it's like, oh, that's what I was supposed to do with that. And they start eating from there on out. Generally speaking, that's not quite as successful as it sounds like it would be. And a lot of the times, understand nature selects certain animals to be a little bit less healthy than others because they're meant to be food for others. Not every animal that is born is supposed to survive. Okay, so understand, some of these animals may come out a little less healthy or with a little less instinct to want to feed. And yes, you can force feed them and keep them alive, but I've never seen too many that had to be force fed on a regular basis stay alive for too terribly long, because for one thing, it really stresses the animal out to the max. Okay, now, hopefully this has been helpful. This is just some things that we do and some tricks to the trade of being able to get your baby boas to feed for the very first time, or at least the first couple of times, essentially getting your baby boa established. Now, I'm Chad, this is Bailey, and we are the Reptile Rangers here at the Kernersville Reptile Zoo and Medical Center. Write us in, let us know of other things you want us to film on. Feel free to comment. Make sure to subscribe, like, hit the bell for notification. We appreciate you following along week after week after week, and we appreciate all the people that's writing us in of all the different topics they want us to film on. So we'll either see you here at the zoo or we'll see you on the next episode. Later.